I'm Sabrina Salas-Matanani. Welcome to Crime Time. We are here in Tiedson at the Chief of Police Office with Acting Guam Police Department Chief. Let me turn this down. Acting Guam Police Department Chief Steve Ignacio. Steve, thanks so much for taking time to meet with me today.
No problem, Sabrina. Thank you for coming out, and thank you for having me here today.
Of course. You know, Steve and I, we actually have known each other for a very long time.
Very long time.
When I was a young reporter covering, you know, the crime beat, and so it's so nice to see how you've climbed up the ranks, and now you're the acting chief of police with your confirmation sometime,
Pending.
right?
Pending.
Pending.
Soon. Yeah, coming soon to legislature near you.
Let's just start then with just your goals and what you hope to achieve as the new chief of police.
Yes, and thank you for asking that question. And I think my goal is really the goal of the younger Tenor administration, and the biggest thing that we're working on right now is recruiting more officers for the Guam Police Department. And as we speak today, as we sit down here and we do this Facebook Live, over the past 2 days, we have a team put together, and they've been interviewing 30 applicants.
30.
So we have 30 openings, and we have 30 applicants. So, you know, we all cross our fingers that all 30 of them will make it through the vetting process. But, you know, as we all know, you know, as we go through the background investigation, the polygraph exam, the drug test, and the psych eval, we understand that, you know, through that testing process and that vetting process, we're going to lose some of those candidates through that process. So what do we do? You know, we have 30 openings. We may not get 30 applicants to fill those positions. So we have a commitment, again, and this is with the governor, the lieutenant governor, you know, working with the Department of Administration and the Guam Police Department, and we're going to do what's called a continuous announcement. So when you go into DOA, the police officer training announcement will be there. It'll be continuous. They'll always be accepting applications for an undetermined amount of time. And so we expect that probably within the next week or so.
So 30 openings, is that going to make you guys whole? I mean, where are you currently with staffing?
Well,
Like
currently,
how many are at each precinct?
Well, so right now we have little over 279 uniformed police officers. So at the precincts, we have an average of about 34 officers assigned to the precinct. But then, you take away the command staff, the captain, the lieutenant, the sergeant too, and then, you also take into effect that, people go on leave for emergencies. We have the same officers that are assigned to the precinct, but also are on military leave. Some of them go for a week, some of them go for a month, and then we also have those that, unfortunately are gone for a year, like with the THAAD deployment in Anderson. So we have, I think, 2 or 3 officers that are on the THAAD deployment. So we lose them for a year. We have another deployment coming up in, I believe, May. And so I'm prepared again to lose an additional 5 officers, if not more, through that what's called, I think, the Middle East deployment. So we're going to be losing, 5 more officers. So, you take that baseline, you have 279 new officers. Then you take away those that are on extended sick leave. Then you take away those that are on military leave. And, the numbers, you start to see the numbers really, dwindle and go down. So you take what you have that's left and you make that work, for the community.
Would you say you said 34 to each precinct, would you cut that in half?
No, not necessarily half. Maybe, on maybe 4 or 5, like I said,
Okay,
you take
so
away
let's just say
you take
30.
away the lieutenant, the captain, and the sergeant too, and then you take away the officers that are on leave, so you're left with maybe about 30 officers.
Okay, that's per precinct, but how about per shift then, out in patrolling?
Well, then you take that, and we have a 4-hour shift. I mean, we have 4 shifts, so we're looking at, again, 6 officers per shift. That includes the supervisor, the desk watch officer, and then of course the 4 patrol officers.
Okay, so 4 patrolling the streets at each.
Yes, and that's our minimum staffing for now. But again, it's not the same through every precinct. You know, on there's some precincts where you know they're able to have enough personnel that they have 5 or 6 beat officers on duty in addition to the supervisor and the sergeant.
Is
I'm sorry,
is 4 enough?
No,
I mean-
absolutely. We all know that 4 is not enough. It's no secret
Right.
that 4 is not enough.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing what we do have and knowing how much we can put out on patrol, you know, we require that there's at least 4 officers for things responding, making sure the officers are they practice officer safety and officer survival. And so, could we use a little bit more? Absolutely. Anybody can use a little bit more. But you know, we're challenged with personnel, and so we do what we can, you know, to get as many officers on patrol. But patrol, let me make it clear, patrol is the priority.
Patrol.
Yes,
And so-
those are the people that get to deal with our community on a day-to-day basis. That's the one-to-one contact.
But hiring 30, and that's not something that happens overnight. I mean, how long will it take to bring these 30 recruits on board?
So through the whole process that I just described
Yeah.
earlier, so we hope to have these 30 at least by the first week of April hired and on board. Then of course we all know that the training process is another lengthy thing. You know, it's at least a minimum of 6 months in the police academy at GCC, and then we have an additional maybe 3 to 4 months of in-service training. You know, everything from using a taser, driving a car, to you know, handcuffing, and you know, the knock and all that, and all the other things that we need to train them on.
I was reading the transition report for public safety and for the Guam Police Department. It didn't really go into specific details about hiring police officers, but what it did talk about was police reservists, getting them the necessary training, and you know, it'd be easier to bring them on board quicker than actually hiring new officers. Is that correct? I mean, and how many police reservists are there, and you know, what kind of training and vetting do they go through?
Yes, so we have at least over 100 police reserve officers that are in the program. On an average month, anywhere from 20 to 25 of them actually show up and do the work of police reserve. So we're looking at maybe the 20 to 25% rate of them showing up to come and work as a reserve officers. Unfortunately, the reserve program is not yet what I would call a pathway into the police reserve, into the full-time police training program. So you know, if you go and look, what I'm trying to say is, if you go and look at the requirements of a police officer trainee who wants to get in the door, there's no mention there of, you know, if you get into the police reserve program, then you're going to get in the door. You know, you compete just like everybody else. Now with the reserve, going back to the reserves, the reserve officers have to go through the same kind of training and education and experience that's just required of a police officer. One that's under the post requirements.
Okay, so they do the polygraph, like you mentioned earlier,
Yes.
all of
And that's the challenge that we have, is that, you know, as a reserve officer, they're not full-time officers, they're not paid employees, but we have to vet them just like we would a full-time police officer. Polygraph, psych eval, drug testing, and background investigation.
Well, for people who are out there watching, if you have a question for the chief, please post your comments below. For the time being, one of the other things that I noticed in the transition report was about neighborhood watch programs.
Yes.
And how they're not necessarily as effective here on Guam as opposed to other jurisdictions, and perhaps there should be better emphasis on community policing.
Right.
Tell me about that.
Funny you mentioned that. Just last night, we had a very successful meeting with our neighborhood watch programs, and I'd like to thank. We had a handful of mayors and vice mayors that came out last night. We had a meeting in Sinanya, and there was a pretty good crowd for a neighborhood watch these are the area leaders for the Neighborhood Watch program. And we had a very good meeting last night. And, you know, as we have this new administration and you have new leadership in the Guam Police Department, you know, the question out there was, you know, what are we going to do with the existing programs? Are you going to continue to support it? You know, where do you stand? And so, you know, I made it clear last night at that meeting that, you know, the Guam Police is here. We're here to continue to support the Neighborhood Watch program. We find that there's a lot of value in the program, and we find that the community is more engaged with the police through these Neighborhood Watch programs.
And so where exactly are all the Neighborhood Watch programs? I know Barragata, there's one there. It's not exactly in every single village, is it?
No, we're not in every single village, but we have visited every single village, and we've, you know, encouraged the people that we visited to start Neighborhood Watch programs. So we may have a couple in Deredo. I know that, like, down in Santa Rita, there's one for just specifically for the Hyundai housing. Last night we heard that there was a new one being started up in I believe the Windward Hills area. So you know, the people are coming out, and they're wanting to get more involved with their community, and they're wanting to get involved with their community and the police, you know, so that we can help work together to solve crime and just make the community a safer place for them.
You know, also in the transition report, it mentioned about having 2 police officers at each mayor's
Yes.
office. I mean, I don't know how that would work when you were talking about earlier, there's actually only 4 on patrol each shift.
Yes, and so, you know, that is something that we want to do is, you know, continue to take that community policing and not just put it with Neighborhood Watch programs, but also tie these police officers into the village mayors. As we all know, you know, the village mayors serve as a great conduit to the police department. I mean, I'm a member of the Municipal Planning Council in Barragata. I live in Barragata. I know my mayor. I know my vice mayor, and they know me. So, so it's not unusual for me to get, you know, a call from, you know, the mayor, vice mayor of Barragata saying, you know, I got an abandoned car. I got this suspicious vehicle. You know, what can you tell me? How can you help me? And so we find that, you know, the mayors are, you know, really there as the front line to their community. And the people in their community know that they can count on the mayors. So that's part of what we've looked at as an organization is how do we fulfill that mission? And so we, you know, we've come up with a plan. It's kind of like what we would call a village resource officer, you know, putting police officers in the village. You know, unfortunately at this point we understand also that there are constraints against that because of staffing. But as you know, as we move forward, you know, we may not be able to get 1 officer in every village. But you know, we need, you know, we can look at the program and start small. We can look at maybe a northern, central, southern, right? And then put 1 officer for the northern villages, maybe 2 officers for the central villages, because there's nine mayors and, you know, 9 municipalities, and then maybe 2 officers down in the southern villages, you know, because we have the eastern side and the southern side that we have to contend with. So, you know, that's something that we look at as opposed to just putting 2 officers per village. We don't know that. I mean, if that's the case, then we're looking at, what is that, 19 villages, 2 officers, 38 people?
Yeah.
And, you know, so that's going to be a challenge, of course. But, you know, it just, you know, break it down, you know, to something that's more manageable. But it's getting these officers, again, into the village, getting them to talk to the mayor, you know, what's going on in your village, how can we help, you know, who's calling you, and what are the issues that are going on.
Well, as you said earlier, mayors are at the front line of
Yes.
their villages, and you actually met with them last night. So what were their main concerns about crime?
Oh, you know, one of the biggest concerns that we had last night really was not so much what is the police doing, but their concern was what I would call the repeat offenders. You know, they talk specifically about a group of minors that, you know, were picked up for crimes. We called juvenile investigation section in. We confined the minors. A couple of days later, the minors are out, and they're, you know, committing crimes against the same person that they were sent, you know, initially for confinement.
Mm-hmm.
So same thing happened, you know, with another village mayor down south. You know, he mentioned, you know, that these people were, you know, picked up for drug offenses, released back, you know, and then he goes, you know, I've worked in this system before, and when they release you from jail, you know, there are certain conditions, like, you know, do not associate with other, you know, known offenders. But, you know, he sees that there's these mingling of these offenders while they're on pre-trial or, you know, are waiting for their case.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really a big concern, you know, last night. It wasn't, what is the police doing? It's really, you know, well, there's like this vicious cycle of, your police come out, you do what you're supposed to do. You know, you ask us as the community to help, we call, we report the crime. You come out, you take these minors in, you take these offenders in, these adults in, you make an arrest, but then we see them out in the street again,
Mm-hmm.
committing the same crime, you know. And that was a challenge for me, and it was a challenge for the rest of my staff,
Mm-hmm.
because that's really something that we don't have the answers to. We don't control the whole criminal justice process.
Mm-hmm.
We do our part as law enforcement, you know, and working with the community.
Right, I can understand how frustrating that can be. I mean, I know that on our end, when we report on the crimes that are being committed, and you see some of the same names, same people
Yes.
being arrested. And so, is there anything that you can do in terms of like maybe opening some sort of a dialogue with the Attorney General's office or the courts? Is that something you guys have done or
Yeah, well,
plan
you know,
to do?
yeah, and we made that commitment last night to the mayors that, you know, at our next meeting with the neighborhood watch group commanders, is that, you know, we would bring out these other agencies so that, you know, that they can also, you know, help to answer some of their questions. But you know, we do have a weekly public safety meeting within the cabinet, and so, you know, these are some of the things that, you know, I get to bring to the table. You know, I can bring it up to, you know, because we have a meeting today. As I say, you know, we had this meeting last night with the neighborhood watch, and some of the issues are, you know, these juveniles that seem to, you know, to go in, come back out, do the same thing, and then we're back at it again. Same thing with adult offenders, you know, whether it's an adult or a juvenile. You know, sometimes, you know, like you said, we see that cycle. You know, it's just a vicious cycle of, you know, in and out, you know, and same things happening.
Well, you mentioned juveniles. Are we seeing an increase in youth crimes?
No, I think, you know, we're, as a matter of fact, in our conversations with DYA, you know, I believe that the confinement rate has gone down up there, so that there's not as many juveniles that are confined as before. Yeah, so you know, we all see the incidences that they get involved with. You know, like Samuel Sanchez. You know, we're able to solve Samuel Sanchez, which, you know, I'm sure that's good for the, you know, not good that it happened, but it's good for the community to know that, you know, the police and the community, you know, work to solve that crime, and we're able to identify the perpetrators and, you know, bring them to justice.
Right, and also good job. I know last night we got the press release that 6 minors were taken into custody, confined over at DYA in relation to a rash of car burglaries.
Yes, yes, and Mayor Savars was at our meeting last night, and you know, she was very happy, and I told her, I said, you know, it's not just the police, you know, because we got these minors. It was the police and the community working together. You know, we got information from the community, and, you know, we acted on it, and because the community wants a safer place, you know, they want a safer community, and that's how we get involved with them, through these neighborhood watch programs.
Well, speaking of community involvement, we do have a partnership with the Superior Court of Guam, the Judiciary of Guam. We need your help to catch some of these fugitives that are roaming our streets. Here's Fugitive Files.
Wanted person, Mario Espinoza Jr., male, Pacific Islander, age 28, height 5 foot 6 inches, weighing 160 pounds, with brown eyes and black hair. Last known village, Deredo, with a tattoo Espinoza on his back and tribal of skull on his right arm. Wanted for violating the conditions of probation. If you have any information regarding this individual, or if the individual being sought would like to self-surrender, please contact the Marshals Division Warrant and Intel Section at 475-3513 or call Crime Stoppers at 477-HELP-4357.
Back to Crime Time. As you can see, the Chief of Police is looking at the questions that are being, and comments that are being posted on our live stream, and we have one from Jesse Limtiaco. He asks, what will happen when police move out of Hagatna Precinct? Will Hagatna be a safe place for tourists and people who work, exercise in the area?
Yes, well, the Hagatna Precinct, it's a very old facility. I think it's outlived its purpose. Yeah. And so it's time for us to move on and get into a facility that best meets the needs of the community. So we're looking forward to a 10,000 square foot facility, and that's a pretty big facility compared to where we're at now. The Hagatna Precinct itself, at least the last plans that I was aware of, is we will be turning that facility over to the Department of Corrections. And I believe that it's still going to be in use, and you're still going to see that law enforcement presence with the Department of Corrections there. Okay. So yeah, it's still going to be a safe place. Yeah.
All right. I wanted to follow up on how we talked about the mayors and the concerns that they brought to your attention about crime in their community. But for you, as the Chief of Police, what do you see as the biggest problem confronting our island?
I think our drug problem continues to be at the forefront, and we continue to chip away at that, and make sure that we do our part, to investigate drugs and do the interdiction that we need to at all levels, whether it's at the patrol level, whether it's at the investigative level, and working with our task force officers at the different various federal agencies. We have a lot of committed resources to these federal agencies because it's a problem that we realize that we need to continue to address.
When we talk about drug problem, we're talking about meth, we're talking about cocaine, we're starting to see...
Specifically, I think we're still seeing, specifically the problem continues to be crystal methamphetamine, or what we call ice. That seems to be the most commonly abused drug. Right.
What about cocaine? Is that starting to see an increase?
I haven't, since I've taken over, I haven't seen any cocaine arrests yet. Yeah. Okay. So hopefully that problem is come and gone. But like anything else, when we encounter it, we increase our awareness, and we try and get to the source of where these drugs are coming in from.
What do you plan on doing different from your predecessor?
Hire more people. Hire more people.
Yeah, but 30 doesn't seem like it's going to be
30
enough.
doesn't seem a lot.
Yeah.
But if you go back in time, the last time we had 30 police officers in a police cycle was in 2005. That's over 14 years ago. 14 years later is when we're going to be able to realize a full cycle of 30 people. I mean, we just put our last cycle out at OGT, and there's only 4 officers in that cycle. So 30 is big compared to 4. Yeah. So and 30 is not the end. Yeah. 30, if I would say, is the beginning. 30 is the beginning, and we're going to continue to recruit as many officers as we can. Given understanding that there are limitations, of course, within the budget. And
How much officers do we need to be, I guess, complete?
The initial estimates were closer to a little bit over 500. I think ideally, if we were to properly staff this one police department, provide all the services that the community needs, and we're able to address crime quickly and efficiently, and respond to all the calls, I think we should be somewhere around 520 is the last count. But we're almost 50% a little over 50% of where we should be. But you know, it's a problem. We just continue to chip away the issues one at a time.
I want to talk about social media. You
Sure.
know, we see it every day. People who post crimes that have been committed at their houses.
Yes.
Video circulates through WhatsApp like wildfire.
Yes.
Has it hurt GPD, or has it, I guess, helped GPD?
I think social media, WhatsApp, and these neighborhood watch programs, if anything, have helped the Guam Police Department. But not only the Guam Police Department, we're not helping the Guam Police.
Well,
We're helping the community,
Mhm.
you know, and this is the community helping the police so that we can help them solve the problems in their communities. So we talked about what social media last night, you know, and WhatsApp seems to be the choice of these neighborhood watch programs. It gets information out faster, information is shared quicker, and so we get to, you know, to see that there's this exchange back and forth between the police and the community. And believe it or not, a lot of our officers, you know, especially like Sergeant Boltzapao, Susie Santos, Scott Wade, you know, Captain Scott Wade, and his group of officers, they're all heavily involved and embedded in this neighborhood WhatsApp group. And so when something's going on in Derrido, they know about it. If something needs to be passed on from Derrido to Mauricio or down Tinron, it's going to be passed on. So that there's this awareness throughout the island, you know. Just because it's happening in Derrido doesn't mean you don't need to know what's going on down, you know, down south. Because, you know, vehicles travel, vehicles move, you know, especially we're talking about suspicious cars.
Does GPD have a presence on social media, like Facebook or?
Yes, yes, we do have some presence with social media.
So people are able to send you information that way if they're not on these individualized WhatsApp?
Yes, we should be able to through, like again, through, like I said, through some of our social media platforms. Yeah.
All right, all right. You know, in the headlines lately, there's been Attorney Tom Fisher.
Yes.
He sent a Freedom of Information request. I think it was on the 11th. He was requesting information regarding directives and policies related to firearms and holsters of police officers and employees of the department. You responded, I think, on Valentine's Day. You denied it, saying that it was protected information because of investigative techniques that might endanger your officers if you were to release that information. Mr. Fisher then fired back, basically saying that's just a BS. And so, you know, I mean, in just layman's terms, you know, that's just not true, because it's information that he claims it's information that you can get openly, that it shouldn't be protected information because it doesn't deal with investigative techniques.
Yes.
So, and now he's threatening to file a lawsuit, a writ of mandamus in the Superior Court to order that GPD produce this information. I mean, have you had any discussions with him, or did you issue another response to
No,
his
actually,
concerns?
so yes, we did issue our initial response to Attorney Fisher, and so this past Monday I did receive his follow-up request.
Okay.
And you know, his explanation that he did not believe that this information was protected. So you know, unfortunately, the Guam Police Department, like all other agencies, you know, we're challenged with having our own in-house legal counsel. We don't have an attorney anymore.
Yeah.
You know, unfortunately, we were stripped of that authority to hire our own attorney many years ago. So we either, you know, we either rely on the people that we assign in our legal section, and you know, we rely that, you know, they have the expertise or the knowledge and the experience, you know, to properly reply. In this case, you know, where he believes that we, you know, we may have erred. So now we're reaching out to the Attorney General's office so that we can get them involved, you know, give it you know, another perspective. So I do plan to respond to Attorney Fisher sometime this week, you know, and let him know where we stand again.
Okay.
But you know, I respect you know, his opinion and his position, and you know, it's just something that we're gonna have to work through.
Okay, so just dial this back. So you're saying that You're going to work with the Attorney General's office to look at this one more time?
Yes, yes.
Because it could possibly be.
Yes, and if it's, and if the
public
Attorney General, you
information.
know, agrees that it's not protected information, then of course, you know, we're gonna comply and we're gonna provide the information that Attorney Fisher, is requesting. You know, we're in no way, here to prohibit information from being released. Yes.
All right, any final comments you'd like to make? Any message to the community?
Yes, I am excited to be here. I look forward to continuing the work of the fine men and women of the Guam Police Department. There are a lot of people that work hard every day to keep our community safe. And so I'd like to thank everybody, you know, for their support of the Guam Police Department.
All right, thanks, Steve.
Thanks, no
And
problem,
good
Sabrina.
luck on your confirmation
Thank you very
hearing.
much.
Thank you, everybody, for watching Crime Time. And of course, thanks for starting your day the KUAM way.